Captain Maya Rodriguez adjusted her dress uniform before stepping onto the bridge of the EA's Olive Branch, Earth's first diplomatic vessel. Its pristine white hull bore the newly adopted global insignia, Earth encircled by an olive branch. The message was clear. Humanity sought peace. "Status report," she commanded, settling into her chair. "All systems nominal," replied XO Commander Daiki Tanaka. "The Galactic Concord has acknowledged our arrival. We're holding position for escort." Rodriguez masked her nerves. For decades, Earth had studied intercepted transmissions, working to decipher enough of the Concord's language to arrange this meeting. The coalition of 17 advanced species ruled this sector of the galaxy. Now, Earth's survival depended on making a good impression. "Captain, incoming vessels," Lieutenant Santos reported. The view screen revealed 3 sleek ships, their iridescent hulls pulsing with unearthly light. "They're beautiful," breathed Communications Officer Park. Rodriguez nodded. "Open frequencies. Transmit our greeting." Park initiated the message. "This is Captain Maya Rodriguez of the Earth Alliance ship Olive Branch. We come seeking friendship and knowledge. The people of Earth extend their hands in peace." Silence followed. Rodriguez exchanged a glance with Tanaka. "No response," Park confirmed. "But they received the transmission." Rodriguez frowned. "Try again." The alien ships suddenly accelerated. Energy signatures spiking. Santos shouted. "Raise shields," Rodriguez ordered, but the Olive Branch was a diplomatic vessel, lightly shielded and unarmed. The first energy blast struck hard. The ship shuddered, alarms blaring. "Hull breach. Decks 3 through 7. Rodriguez grabbed the comms. "We are unarmed. We are on a diplomatic mission." The second volley ripped through the ship. Consoles exploded. Smoke filled the bridge. Rodriguez activated the emergency recorder, her voice calm. "This is Captain Rodriguez of Earth. We came in peace. We meant no harm." "Why?" The transmission cut off as the Olive Branch was obliterated in a blinding flash. High Admiral Vexnar of the Mercati watched the destruction impassively. His chitinous exoskeleton clicked as he gestured to his adjutant. "Another primitive species thinking they deserve a seat at the table," he remarked. "Send resource extraction demands to their homeworld. 1 standard month to prepare for integration." "The usual terms." "Efficiency," affirmed the adjutant. Vexnar turned away. The Defense Council meeting was soon, and this minor incident wasn't worth delaying for. Earth would fall as so many had before. Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, in a seafloor command bunker, Admiral Elena Vasquez watched the attack unfold. Around her, officers reacted with horror. She remained still. When the recording ended, she faced the United Earth Defense Council, 12 grim-faced leaders. "They've made their choice," she said. "Now we make ours." A second hologram flickered to life, a warship unlike anything seen before. For 40 years, Earth had kept its ultimate insurance policy hidden. "Activate the reckoning," Vasquez ordered. "It's time." Chief Engineer Kenji Takahara's footsteps echoed through the cavernous engine room of the EDS_reckoning_. After 40 years of preparation, the moment he had both anticipated and dreaded had finally arrived. Ceres, the asteroid that had concealed humanity's greatest secret, now opened like a blossoming flower of steel and stone, massive sections of rock sliding away to reveal the nightmare within. "All antimatter containment cores at optimal levels," reported his assistant, Dr. Aisha Rahman. Her voice carried the faintest tremor, not from fear of technical failure, but from the moral weight of what they had created. "Begin power distribution to all systems," Takahara ordered, his weathered hands dancing across holographic controls that materialized around him as he walked. "Prioritize propulsion and defensive screens." The _reckoning_ had never been meant for this. It was insurance, humanity's ultimate deterrent against cosmic extinction. Following the discovery of alien signals in 2089, Earth's nations had set aside their differences and pooled resources into a singular purpose: Survival. The result was 3 kilometers of metal and technology that embodied mankind's darkest imagination. Mankind's entire history of warfare distilled into a single vessel, Takahara muttered as he observed the antimatter cores pulsing with barely restrained power. God help them if they ever see what this ship can really do. Around him, thousands of crew members moved with practiced precision. They had trained for this moment through countless simulations, though all had prayed it would remain theoretical. The _reckoning's hull incorporated materials that defied conventional physics. Exotic matter forged in orbital foundries that absorbed energy rather than reflecting it. To sensors, it would appear as a jagged void against space itself, a piece of darkness cut from the fabric of reality. Primary weapons check complete, announced the weapons officer over the ship-wide comm. All 17 disruptor arrays responsive. Takahara closed his eyes briefly. Those weapons, reality-shearing quantum disruptors that could selectively dismantle atomic bonds, represented technology deemed too dangerous to even test near Earth. Their development had consumed 30% of the planet's research budget for decades, hidden from the public under the innocuous designation Project Prometheus. Chief Engineer to the bridge, came the summons. Admiral Vasquez has arrived. The journey through the _reckoning's interior took 12 minutes by maglev, a testament to the vessel's enormous scale. When Takahara emerged onto the command deck, the assembled officers snapped to attention. Some looked away, unable to meet the gaze of Admiral Elena Vasquez as she strode from the lift. Her presence commanded the room, not from physical stature, but from the weight of history she carried. The last survivor of the Titan Wars, Vasquez bore both physical and psychological scars. Her cybernetic eye scanned the bridge crew, recording their biometric readings and cataloging their emotional states for later review. Engineering status, she demanded without preamble. All systems operational. Admiral. Takahara reported. The _reckoning is ready. Vasquez nodded once. Begin undocking procedures. Initiate Dark Protocol. Dark Protocol, the ship's signature stealth capability. As the massive docking clamps released their hold, the _reckoning's exotic matter hull began actively absorbing all electromagnetic radiation that touched it. Radar, lidar, visual light, all disappeared into the ship's surface without reflection. Today we carry the fate of 8 billion souls, Vasquez addressed the crew, her voice carrying to every compartment through the ship's communication system. Today we show the galaxy what happens when you mistake preparation for weakness. As the colossal vessel broke free from its birthplace, asteroids scattered like dust before its massive gravitational field generators. The _reckoning oriented itself toward the distant coordinates where the _olive branch had been destroyed, its FTL drive spooling up with a deep resonant hum that seemed to vibrate at a frequency just below human hearing. Set course for the Concord hub, Vasquez ordered. Maximum velocity. As the stars stretched and blurred around the viewport, Takahara sent a single encrypted message to Earth. The sword is drawn. The Titan had awakened, and the galaxy would never be the same. The central hub of the Galactic Concord pulsed with activity as representatives from 17 spacefaring civilizations gathered for Earth's formal submission ceremony. The massive structure, a marvel of engineering that spanned 30 kilometers at its widest point, orbited a nondescript yellow star chosen for its strategic position at the nexus of 7 major trade routes. In the resource allocation chamber, Vrexil Ambassador Thosran clicked his mandibles excitedly as he secured rights to Earth's oceans. The composition analysis suggests abundant rare minerals in their deep-sea trenches, he explained to a cluster of interested parties, and the indigenous aquatic life forms will provide novel specimens for our biological research divisions. Nearby, Hotric merchants with their characteristic luminescent skin folds argued vociferously over human population redistribution quotas. Their musculature and endurance make them ideal for heavy labor, one insisted. My mining operations on Vesh Prime will require at least 2 million units. Units, not people. The distinction was deliberate in Concord terminology when discussing pre-integration species. War Minister Grohl, his translucent skin displaying the pulsing orange patterns that indicated pleasure in his species, raised a ceremonial flask. To another successful integration. The primitives never learn, do they? Always thinking their pitiful diplomatic vessels represent strength. The assembled dignitaries laughed, a cacophony of clicks, whistles, humming tones, and guttural sounds that the chamber's acoustic system harmonized into something approximating shared amusement. Only Ambassador Zerkth of the Vexari remained silent, her 6 eyes blinking in their characteristic asynchronous pattern that signified deep thought. The Vexari were among the oldest members of the Concord, and rumors persisted that they had access to historical archives predating the Alliance itself. The celebration halted abruptly when Senior Analyst Tizorik burst into the chamber, his exoskeleton flushed with the biochemical indicators of extreme agitation. The 4-limbed analyst skittered directly to the High Council table, bypassing security protocols that would normally prevent such an interruption. "Honored ones," he chittered, mandibles clicking nervously. "Our long-range sensors detect an anomaly approaching from the Sol system." The chamber erupted in dismissive laughter. War Minister Grohl's skin rippled with derisive patterns. What primitive retaliation could they possibly mount? A fleet of chemical rockets. The minister's translation device rendered his scorn perfectly. Ambassador Zerkith silenced the room with a sharp hiss, a rare display of emotion from the normally reserved Vexari. "Show us," she demanded. The chamber's central holographic array flickered to life, displaying the vast emptiness of space at the edge of the system. At first, nothing seemed amiss. Then, gradually, the counselors noticed it. A region where stars seemed to disappear, a moving shadow that sensor data struggled to define. "Magnify," Zerkith whispered, her inner eyelids drawing back in what those familiar with Vexari expressions recognized as alarm. The display zoomed in, algorithms attempting to compensate for the visual anomaly. It was as if a piece of space itself had been cut out and set in motion, a ship-shaped void that absorbed all light and sensor scans without reflection. "What is that?" demanded High Admiral Vexnar, all 8 eyes fixed on the display. "Unknown, Excellency," replied Kizarik. "It absorbs all scanning attempts. Our systems cannot determine its composition, internal structure, or power source. We only detected it because it occluded stellar backgrounds." The true scale of the object became apparent when it passed before a small Concord monitoring outpost on the system's periphery. The station, itself nearly a kilometer in length, was completely eclipsed by the passing shadow. In the stunned silence that followed, Ambassador Zerkith began reciting in the ancient high dialect of her species, words that her translator didn't, or couldn't, process. When she finished, she switched back to standard Concord speech. "The forbidden archives warned us," she said softly. "And behold, the destroyers shall return in ships of absolute darkness, moving as wounds upon the face of creation itself." "What nonsense is this?" demanded Vexnar, but his voice lacked its usual authority. "Not nonsense, Admiral," Zerkith replied. "History. The history your ancestors erased because they feared it would undermine Concord's stability." Her 6 eyes fixed on the approaching void. "I believe we are about to face judgment for your actions against Earth." Grand Commander Xelthos of the Concord Security Fleet stood on the command deck of the Indomitable Justice, his bioluminescent crest flaring with pride as he surveyed the defensive formation. 43 of the Concord's finest warships had assembled in record time, each vessel representing centuries of technological development and martial tradition. They formed a protective barrier before the hub, weapons charge, shields at maximum. "A most impressive response time, Commander," remarked his executive officer, her dorsal spines vibrating with appropriate deference. "The primitives will understand the futility of their gesture," Selphos replied. His species, the Kellamore, had provided the Concord's military leadership for 6 generations. Their natural predatory instincts and hierarchical social structure made them ideal commanders, or so the prevailing wisdom claimed. The void-like anomaly had now fully entered the system, decelerating in a manner that violated several fundamental principles of known physics. It moved with deliberate precision, maintaining a course directly toward the hub but stopping at a respectful distance, close enough to be unmistakably present, far enough to avoid being perceived as an immediate attack. "Open communication channels," Selphos ordered. "Let us educate these primitives on the proper order of the galaxy." When the connection established, Selphos spoke with the full authority of his position. "Unidentified vessel from Sol system. This is Grand Commander Selphos of the Galactic Concord Security Fleet. Your unauthorized approach constitutes a violation of Concord space. Power down immediately and prepare to be boarded, or be destroyed. Your primitive attempt at intimidation is futile against the might of the Concord." The response came not in words but in data, detailed scans of the Concord fleet transmitted back to them, identifying each vessel by class, armament, and structural vulnerabilities with disturbing accuracy. The implied message was clear. "We see you completely. You cannot see us at all. After allowing this to register, a human voice finally responded. Female, calm, unburdened by the translator distortions that typically accompanied cross-species communication. The audio-only transmission filled the command deck. "This is Admiral Elena Vasquez of Earth Defense Ship _Reckoning _. You murdered our diplomats who came in peace. Return their remains and prepare to negotiate reparations." Selphos felt his crest bristle with indignation. "Primitive species are not permitted to make demands," he replied, signaling his weapons officer to finalize targeting solutions. "Your vessel, while impressively large, cannot stand against our combined firepower. We have already claimed your world under Concord Integration Protocol. This is your final warning." On the bridge of the _Reckoning _, Admiral Vasquez closed her eyes briefly upon hearing the response. Lieutenant Sarah Chen at Communications looked up from her console with barely concealed anger. "They're still demanding our surrender, Admiral." Vasquez nodded once. "So be it." She turned to her weapons officer. "Commander Patel, designate the uninhabited moon at coordinates 227 Mark 43. Primary disruptor at 10% capacity." Commander Raj Patel's fingers moved across his console with surgical precision. "Target acquired. Weapon charged at 10%. Awaiting your command, Admiral." "Fire." The _Reckoning _ shuddered almost imperceptibly as its primary weapon system activated. There was no visible beam, no dramatic light show, only a distortion in space-time itself as concentrated exotic particles, invisible until they interacted with matter, streaked toward the designated moon. The effect began subtly across the moon's cratered surface, a vibration, a change in coloration as molecular bonds began to destabilize. Then the cascade accelerated exponentially. Fissures appeared along fault lines, spreading like cracks in glass. The regolith rippled like liquid. In less than 30 seconds, the entire celestial body didn't explode so much as it simply dissolved, its component atoms gently drifting apart in an expanding cloud that glittered with released energy. Across the Concord fleet, sensors overloaded and emergency alarms blared. The Concord communication channel filled with panicked chatter in multiple languages before Vasquez spoke again. "That was one weapon at minimal power. We have 17 such systems. I repeat, return our people and prepare to negotiate." In the horrified silence that followed, one of Commander Selphos's bridge officers whispered what everyone was thinking. "By the first stars, what have we awakened?" Chaos erupted throughout the Concord hub as news of the moon's destruction spread. The massive structure, home to over 12 million beings from 17 species, had never experienced a security crisis of this magnitude. Emergency protocols designed for natural disasters or isolated terrorist incidents proved woefully inadequate for the existential dread that now gripped the population. Ambassador Zerkith moved against the tide of panicked officials, her six-limbed form navigating the crowded corridors with practiced grace. Alarms wailed in multiple harmonic frequencies, each calibrated for different species' auditory ranges, creating a disorienting cacophony. The ambassador's escort struggled to keep pace as she headed for a section of the hub that few knew existed. "Ambassador, the evacuation protocols," began her aide, "will accomplish nothing if that vessel decides we should not leave." Zerkith interrupted. "I need access to the ancestral archives." The archives occupied a shielded section deep within the hub's central core, protected by security measures that predated the current Concord government. Zerkith placed her primary manipulator against a seemingly ordinary wall panel. After a series of genetic and psionic scans confirmed her identity, a hidden passage revealed itself. "Wait here," she instructed her aide. "What I seek is for Vexeri eyes alone." The chamber beyond was ancient by any standard, a repository of knowledge deemed too dangerous or destabilizing for general access. Illumination panels activated automatically, revealing walls lined with crystalline data matrices that dated back to the earliest days of interstellar contact. Zerkith approached a specific section marked with warning glyphs in Old Vexeri. Her access codes, passed down through 27 generations of her bloodline, unlocked a secure data node. Holographic images sprang to life around her. Star charts showing a region marked with warning symbols, fragmentary accounts from 17 different species, all describing eerily similar encounters. The translations were imperfect, the records incomplete, but the common elements were unmistakable. A destructive bipedal species whose weapons could unmake reality. Most disturbing were the anatomical comparisons that the system automatically generated, showing these legendary destroyers matching human physiological patterns with 97% certainty. One fragment particularly chilled her, underscored, "They came in peace until we gave them reason for war." The darkness of their vessels was matched only by the darkness of their retribution. "Let it be recorded that we brought this upon ourselves." Underscore. Meanwhile, in the civilian sectors of the hub, mass panic had taken hold. Parents ushered children indoors, religious sects proclaimed end times, and underground markets surged with demand for escape vessels. Through it all, the reckoning remained visible in the sky as a starless void, a black wound against the backdrop of stars. The Concord's unified response fractured along species lines as different evolutionary psychologies processed the threat differently. The warrior-cased Braxians demanded immediate all-out attack despite the demonstration of power. The hive-minded Quanti began emergency evacuation procedures, prioritizing queens and genetic repositories. The ancient Illuvians, oldest among the Concord races, called for an emergency council meeting to seek diplomatic resolution. When Zerkith finally returned to the council chamber, she found a scene of near chaos. High Admiral Vexnar was engaged in a heated argument with War Minister Grohl, while representatives from a dozen species shouted to be heard. Silence. Zerkith's voice cut through the din with unexpected authority. The chamber quieted as she approached the central platform. The legends were real, she announced to the stunned audience. What we dismissed as ancient superstition appears to be historical record. The anatomical match is unmistakable. We are facing the descendants of the destroyers, or perhaps the destroyers themselves. Preposterous, sputtered Vexnar. These myths were preserved by my people for a reason. Zerkith interrupted. The archives contain accounts from 17 different civilizations, spanning 3 galactic sectors. All describe the same entity, a species with terrible weapons that could unmake matter itself, who traveled in vessels that absorbed light and energy. She activated a projection showing the ancient warning glyphs alongside images of the reckoning. They came before, and something drove them away or destroyed them. But it seems their children have found us again. She turned to face Vexnar directly. And you gave them reason to remember why they built such weapons in the first place. Security Chief Drexel burst into the council chamber, his exoskeleton clicking frantically as he skittered across the polished floor. The high-ranking Drexel's normally impeccable composure had shattered, his sensory appendages twitching with agitation. "We've been compromised," he announced, mandibles spread wide in the Drexel expression of extreme alarm. "Humans have already infiltrated the Concord." The chamber, already tense from Ambassador Zerth's revelations about ancient destroyers, erupted into fresh chaos. War Minister Grohl's translucent skin flushed deep crimson as he demanded, "Explain yourself, Security Chief." Drexel activated a holographic display showing security footage from multiple Concord facilities. "We've been analyzing communication patterns since the arrival of the human vessel. Our systems detected anomalous encryption signatures matching protocols used by the destroyed Earth diplomatic ship." The display shifted to show a maintenance worker on the hub's environmental control level. This individual, who has worked here for 7 years as Technician Jakara, does not exist in any Vrexa colony registry. His genetic profile, which we've now properly analyzed, shows signs of extensive modification, but is fundamentally human. Gasps rippled through the assembly as the implications sank in. For decades before official first contact, Earth had dispatched specialized reconnaissance teams throughout Concord space, anthropologists, linguists, and special forces operators living under deep cover. With surgical genetic modifications and intensive training, these individuals had become perfect infiltrators, gathering intelligence and establishing networks across multiple worlds. The human in question was Lieutenant Commander Jackson Chen of Earth Special Intelligence. Having spent 7 years embedded as a maintenance worker on the hub, he had learned 6 Concord languages and mapped every critical system. As the security footage played for the horrified council, Chen was moving through a maintenance tunnel, fully aware of the surveillance, but no longer concerned with maintaining his cover. "How many?" demanded High Admiral Vexnar. "Unknown," Drexel admitted. "We've identified 17 confirmed cases across 6 worlds, but there could be hundreds. They've infiltrated every level of Concord society, medical facilities, academic institutions, even military installations." The display cycled through more images. Dr. Amara Okafor, posing as a medicant on the Drexel homeworld for 12 years. Commander David Singh, who had risen to become a trusted advisor to a Hotric trade baron. Professor Maria Hernandez, whose research into Concord linguistics had made her a respected academic while allowing her to access restricted information networks. Meanwhile, in a rarely used maintenance corridor near the hub's central power distribution node, Lieutenant Commander Chen listened to the council meeting through a hacked feed. When he overheard War Minister Grohl ordering civilian ships to form a protective screen around military assets, effectively using them as shields, he broke protocol and activated his quantum-entangled communicator. "Starfall to reckoning," he subvocalized, the microscopic implant in his jaw transmitting directly. "Confirm transmission." "Reckoning receiving," came the immediate response. "Report, Starfall. They're planning to use civilian vessels as shields. War Minister Grohl has ordered all passenger ships to form a protective cordon around military assets. Approximately 20,000 non-combatants will be placed in the line of fire." On the bridge of the _reckoning _, Admiral Vasquez received Chen's warning with cold fury. The bridge crew watched her face harden as she processed the information. "They're using their own civilians as shields," she told her officers, disgust evident in her voice. "Tactical, can we neutralize their military command vessels without endangering the civilian ships?" Commander Patel studied his display for several seconds. "Conventional weapons? No. But the microkinetic drones could thread that needle." "Deploy them," Vasquez ordered. "Precision targets only, their military command vessels and communication arrays. And broadcast Minister Grohl's orders on all public frequencies. Let's make sure everyone knows what their leaders are willing to sacrifice." The underscore reckoning underscore shimmered slightly as launch bays opened along its ventral surface. Thousands of near-invisible drones, each no larger than a hummingbird, streaked toward the Concorde fleet. They moved too quickly for defense systems to track, systematically disabling the Concorde leadership's private escape vessels, while broadcasting Grohl's-damning orders to public networks. As the revelations spread, the first signs of internal rebellion flared across the Concorde fleet. On 3 separate vessels, crew members refused orders to position themselves behind civilian ships. On the hub itself, protests erupted outside the council chamber. The carefully maintained hierarchy of the Concorde, built on manipulation and enforced cooperation, began to crumble under the weight of a single devastating truth. Their leaders valued power over lives. Ambassador Zerketh stood alone in her private chambers, contemplating the unfolding chaos. The Concorde, a political entity that had endured for nearly 12,000 years, teetered on the brink of collapse. Outside her viewport, the black void of the human vessel hung motionless against the stars, a silent observer to the disintegration of an empire. After several moments of contemplation, Zerketh made her decision. Dismissing her aides and security detail, she approached a secure communication terminal installed for emergencies. Using an old diplomatic frequency that predated current Concorde protocols, she composed a simple message: "I seek to understand, not to fight." The response came faster than expected. Perhaps the humans had been hoping for such an overture. A meeting was arranged in a neutral location, a small observation dome extending from the hub into open space, isolated from both Concorde security systems and the main population centers. 3 hours later, Zerketh stood waiting, her 4 arms clasped in the traditional Vexuri posture of peaceful intent. The airlock cycled, and a single human figure entered the dome. Admiral Elena Vasquez wore her formal uniform, midnight blue with silver trim, devoid of the ostentatious decorations favored by Concorde military leaders. Her scared face and cybernetic eye gave her an almost predatory appearance by Vexuri standards, yet Zerketh sensed something unexpected beneath the hardened exterior. Exhaustion, not bloodlust. The underscore reckoning underscore loomed in the background through the transparent dome, its black form eclipsing the stars. Neither female acknowledged it directly, though its presence informed every word of their conversation. "Thank you for agreeing to meet, Admiral," Zerketh began, her translator struggling to convey the complex emotional harmonics of her native language. Vasquez nodded once. "You're the first to approach us with something other than threats or surrender demands. That merits recognition. Why do you possess such weapons?" Zerketh asked directly, her 6 eyes blinking in their asynchronous pattern. "What species build such horrors unless they intend conquest?" Vasquez's laugh contained no humor. "A species that nearly destroyed itself a dozen times over. A species that evolved as prey before becoming predators. A species that learned to expect the worst while hoping for the best." She moved to the viewport, gazing at the stars. "Humanity united not for conquest but survival. We intercepted your transmissions decades ago, learned about the Concorde and its practices. We watched how you integrated other civilizations. So you built a weapon of unimaginable power," Zerketh observed. "We built a deterrent," Vasquez corrected. "The underscore reckoning underscore was our insurance policy against extinction. We hoped never to use it." "Your people attacked without provocation," Zerketh noted. "And you judged wrongly," Vasquez replied evenly. "On Earth, we have a saying: speak softly and carry a big stick. We came with peaceful words first. The stick was always our last resort." A moment of understanding passed between them. 2 females from vastly different worlds, both trying to protect their people. "The archives suggest your kind has visited our galaxy before," Zerketh ventured. Vasquez shook her head. "If humans explored the stars in some distant past, that knowledge has been lost to us. We evolved on Earth, Ambassador. Our history is written in stone and bone and DNA. There is no evidence we came from elsewhere." then the similarities are coincidental, or the records are mistaken, or there are patterns in evolution that repeat across the universe. Vasquez shrugged slightly. We may never know. The Admiral activated a small device, projecting a holographic display between them. What I do note is this: humanity wants peace, not war. As proof of our intentions, I offer you our history. The display expanded, showing an unfiltered record of human civilization, its art and music alongside its wars and atrocities, its philosophical treatises beside its genocides, its greatest achievements and most terrible failures. This is all of us, Vasquez explained. Unedited, our complete historical and cultural database. We hide nothing of Earth's bloody past or its aspirations for a more peaceful future. This unprecedented transparency stunned the ambassador. Most species carefully curated their presentation to others, emphasizing their virtues while minimizing their flaws. Why would you share this? Zerkov asked, genuinely puzzled. Because understanding requires truth, Vasquez replied simply. And if there's to be peace between us, it must be built on understanding, not fear. As Zerkov absorbed the implications of this gesture, reports reached them both. Across Concord space, Earth's undercover operatives had begun revealing themselves, not as saboteurs but as mediators, helping to calm unrest and prevent further bloodshed. Two civilizations stood at a crossroads. War remained possible, perhaps even probable. But for the first time, another path had emerged. 3 months after the Reckoning's arrival, the reformed Galactic Concord convened in a chamber that bore little resemblance to its predecessor. Gone were the raised platforms for superior species and the segregated seating that had once reinforced the hierarchy. Representatives from all 17 Concord worlds, along with humanity as a newly recognized independent power, gathered as equals beneath the transparent dome that offered a clear view of both the stars and the Reckoning in its vigilant orbit. Admiral Vasquez, now serving as Earth's ambassador, wore a simple blue diplomatic uniform rather than her military attire, a deliberate choice to signal Earth's preference for peace despite its capacity for war. Beside her stood Lieutenant Commander Chen, his cover identity abandoned for his true role as cultural liaison. The final provisions have been accepted by all parties, announced the session moderator, a position now filled by rotation rather than hereditary appointment. The reformed Concord Treaty stands ready for ratification. The document before them represented a fundamental reimagining of interstellar relations. It acknowledged each species' right to self-defense and cultural autonomy, while establishing protocols for more respectful first contact. The most radical provision, the one that had nearly derailed negotiations multiple times, was the ban on forced integration of developing civilizations. Several of the most aggressive Concord leaders had been removed through internal processes, replaced by those who recognized the new reality. The galaxy was more complex and dangerous than they had imagined. High Admiral Vexnar now faced prosecution for war crimes, while War Minister Grohl had fled to the outer colonies, his once formidable influence shattered. As representatives approached to add their biometric signatures to the treaty, Vasquez found Ambassador Zerkov at her side. Your ship remains in orbit, the Vexari observed, a reminder of consequences. Insurance, Vasquez corrected gently. Trust builds slowly. Zerkov's mandibles clicked in what humans had learned was laughter. Your arrival changed everything. Species previously bullied by the Concord now seek Earth's protection. Powers beyond our space send diplomatic inquiries daily. You've triggered a paradigm shift throughout known space. Not what we intended, Vasquez admitted. We simply wanted to exist unmolested. Yet here you stand at the center of galactic politics. Zerkov hesitated before asking the question that had preoccupied her for months. The ancient records of the destroyers that I showed you, have your historians found any connection? Vasquez shook her head. We've analyzed the fragments thoroughly. Our anthropologists believe they were fabrications, psychological operations from an earlier era of Concord history. a convenient bogeyman to maintain unity through shared fear. A manufactured threat to justify centralized power, Zerkth mused. How did you describe it? The monster under the bed, Vasquez smiled. It looks different across cultures, but it serves the same purpose. Their conversation paused as a young Hotric architect approached with holographic renderings. His luminescent skin glowed with excitement as he presented plans for Phoenix Nexus, a massive joint Earth Concord station designed for cultural exchange and scientific cooperation. The structural supports incorporate design elements from all 18 species, he explained eagerly. The central hub features an educational facility where our peoples can learn from each other's histories. As Vasquez approved the concept, her communication implant chimed softly. Excusing herself, she moved to a private alcove where Chief Engineer Takahara's image appeared. The long-range sensors have detected something, Admiral, he reported without preamble. Unusual activity beyond the Concord's charted territories. Unknown civilizations appear to be mobilizing in response to news of Earth, and the _reckoning _ hostile. Unclear. Some patterns suggest defensive posturing, others appear to be preparations for diplomatic contact. But they're definitely reacting to us. Vasquez absorbed this with measured calm. The _reckoning _ had accomplished its primary mission, ensuring humanity's survival and independence. But its very existence had irrevocably altered the galactic balance of power, creating ripples that would continue spreading outward for generations. She returned to the chamber as the final signatures were applied to the treaty. Applause in various biological forms, hand claps, mandible clicks, harmonic hums, filled the space. A new chapter in galactic history had begun, with humanity as both author and subject. Later, standing alone at a viewport, Vasquez gazed at the distant stars where unknown civilizations were even now responding to humanity's dramatic entrance onto the cosmic stage. Some with fear, some with hope, but all with the recognition that the universe had changed. And so it begins again, she whispered. The journey that had started with destruction had led to creation. The weapon built for war had ultimately forged peace, and humanity, once isolated on its single world, now stood as an equal among the stars, respected not just for the horror its battleship could unleash, but for the wisdom it had shown in choosing when not to use it. *The end, or perhaps just the beginning of humanity's cosmic journey.